You know that X-Files poster, I Want to Believe,
Right.
with the flying saucer?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel sometimes with this topic. Like, I want to believe that there's something more out there. But then the skeptic in me is like...
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
That's the fascinating premise of Luis Elizondo's book, Imminent.
Okay.
You know, he's not just some UFO chaser working out of his basement, right?
Right.
This is a career intelligence officer.
Oh.
This is a guy who knows how to assess threats.
Right.
And he found himself leading the Pentagon's UAP investigation.
Wow. So this book lays out a really compelling case.
Yeah.
Not just from, you know, like you said, people chasing lights in the sky.
Yeah.
Right.
But from pilot encounters,
Yeah.
radar data,
Correct.
and even government secrecy.
That's right.
That suggests something truly unknown is operating in our airspace.
And what makes his story so compelling is he's a skeptic turned believer.
Okay.
He brought, you know, a healthy amount of doubt to the table, even with a background in unconventional intelligence gathering, like remote viewing and things like that.
Oh, wow.
But when he was tapped to head the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, he encountered data that was so strange, so far outside our understanding of physics, that his skepticism crumbled.
Wow.
You know, he couldn't deny it anymore.
So let's talk about that data.
Okay.
There are 5 key observables.
That he talks about.
Right.
That set UAP encounters apart from your typical misidentified airplane, weather balloon, things like that.
Right. It's not just lights in the sky.
Right.
We're talking about objects displaying capabilities that should be impossible.
Okay.
And
Like what?
he's very specific about these observables.
Yeah.
And he grounds them in actual reported incidents.
Okay.
So take anti-gravity, for instance.
Okay.
Forget propulsion systems. We understand.
Right.
These things move as if they figured out how to neutralize Earth's gravitational pull.
So they're not creating their own gravity.
It's like they're manipulating it somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one.
That's one.
And then there's the speed.
Yeah.
The speed's insane.
Right.
We're not even talking supersonic.
Right.
We're talking hypersonic velocities.
Right.
Speeds that would make our most advanced fighter jets look like they're standing still.
Yeah.
And the way they change direction, instantaneous acceleration.
Right.
It's something that no human pilot could withstand.
Yeah, it would completely crush us.
Yeah, exactly.
So speed, anti-gravity.
And this ties into another observable.
Okay.
Low observability.
What does that mean?
So they can appear and disappear.
Really?
Seemingly it will.
Really?
Or move in ways that make them incredibly difficult to track, even with our most sophisticated radar.
Oh, wow.
It's like they can manipulate their own visibility.
So almost like cloaking technology.
Yeah, it's almost as if they can bend light around them or do something to make them, invisible to certain spectrums.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got objects defying gravity, moving at impossible speeds.
Right.
And basically blinking in and out of existence.
Yeah.
And
then there's transmedium travel, which is where it gets really strange. We're talking about objects transitioning seamlessly from the air into the water.
Wow.
Even potentially space.
Okay.
Without any apparent change in performance.
So no.
It challenges our understanding of physics.
Yeah.
It suggests that these objects might be exploiting some unknown principle to navigate different mediums.
So Elizondo's book, it's packed with examples.
Yeah, it is.
But the one that really captures the imagination and probably kicked off a lot of this public fascination is the 2004 Nimitz encounter.
Right. And this isn't some blurry photo from a distance.
Right.
We're talking multiple Navy pilots, trained observers.
Yeah.
Tracking a tic-tac-shaped object off the coast of San Diego.
Now, these are seasoned pilots.
Absolutely.
We're talking guys like Commander David Fravor.
Right, who's spoken publicly about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's a credible guy.
Yeah.
He's not some,
He's got nothing to gain by lying.
Right, exactly.
So.
And the thing is, they got it on FLIR video.
Okay.
So it wasn't just visual confirmation.
Yeah.
There were multiple sensors picking up this object.
Wow.
And its maneuvers.
Yeah.
It was like it was toying with them.
Really? Pulling off turns and accelerations that would rip apart a conventional aircraft.
Okay, so it wasn't just a straight line.
Oh, no.
It was actually maneuvering.
It was making maneuvers that defied our understanding of aerodynamics.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this wasn't an isolated incident either.
Right, and he talks about another case,
okay,
the 1977 Brazilian Colares incident, where a small coastal town was seemingly terrorized by orbs.
Really?
Now, this one goes beyond your typical UFO sighting.
Okay.
These weren't just lights in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about reports of physical and psychological effects on the witnesses.
Oh, wow.
Burns, skin lesions.
Okay.
Just bizarre stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
And what kind of psychological effects are we talking about?
Well, people reported feeling disoriented, having anxiety, nightmares.
Wow.
Like a real sense of dread and fear.
Really?
Yeah, like something out of a horror movie or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
from these orbs.
Yeah, from these orbs that were appearing, night after night.
Wow.
And it gets even weirder.
Okay.
He describes an incident where a U.S. military tank, one of the toughest pieces of equipment imaginable, ends up with a perfectly round hole punched through its armor.
Really?
No projectile, no heat damage, just a clean hole, as if it were made of paper.
How is that even possible?
It boggles the mind.
And then there's that chilling story about the Navy helicopter trying to recover a missile from the ocean.
Right.
And then this massive circular object rises up from the depths,
grabs the missile, and vanishes back into the water.
Wow.
You can't make this stuff up.
And these are
credible witnesses and evidence.
Right. This isn't just, somebody's imagination running wild.
Right.
This is documented, in military reports.
So with all of these cases, and all of this data,
mountains of data,
this left Elizondo deeply troubled.
Yeah, and you can sense that in the book. He's not a fearmonger.
Right.
He's not trying to, scare people.
Yeah.
But he's clearly concerned.
Okay.
He realized this wasn't just about strange lights in the sky. This was a potential national security issue.
Right.
And yet he was facing resistance from within the government.
Right. People who didn't want to even acknowledge what was happening.
Wow.
It's almost as if the objects themselves weren't as unsettling as the idea that someone or something might be trying to keep them hidden.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really strange.
It is.
You've got these objects that are seemingly defying physics.
Yeah.
Doing things we don't understand.
Right.
And then you have this veil of secrecy on top of it.
Right.
It makes you wonder what's really going on.
It really does. It's almost like they're not taking it as seriously as they should.
Well, and that was Elizondo's concern.
Right.
That there was this lack of urgency.
Right.
That people were more interested in covering it up than they were in figuring out what it was.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought.
That is scary, yeah.
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 So it's one thing to have all these stories, right?
Yeah.
But Elizondo, he didn't stop at just collecting these stories, these encounters.
He wanted to understand the how.
Right, the how. Like, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
And it led him down some really interesting scientific rabbit holes.
He wasn't afraid to go there.
Yeah.
He was really trying to wrap his head around what could possibly explain these capabilities.
Yeah.
And to do that, he tapped into some pretty unconventional minds.
Okay, like who?
Well, one of the key figures that he brought in was a physicist named Hal Puthoff.
Okay.
A guy who had already made a name for himself exploring the fringes of physics.
What do you mean, fringes of physics? Well, like looking into things that a lot of mainstream scientists might consider to be, a little out there.
Okay.
But Elizondo, he was open to anything.
Okay.
He wanted to understand what was going on. So Puthoff, he was really interested in things like manipulating space-time itself.
Okay, so like actual science fiction stuff?
Yeah, it sounds like science fiction.
Right.
But he was using, Einstein's theory of general relativity.
Okay.
Not just as an explanation, but as a potential engineering challenge.
Wow, so you're saying there could be real science behind this.
Exactly.
It's not just,
Not just, little green men and flying saucers.
Right.
This is next level stuff.
Okay, so like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so take the idea of a warp bubble, for example.
Okay, that does sound like Star Trek.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Puthoff, he theorized that if you could compress the space in front of a craft and expand the space behind it,
okay,
you could essentially create a shortcut through space-time.
So like bending space to your will?
Exactly. And to an outside observer, it would look like the craft was moving faster than light.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Even disappearing and reappearing.
Wow.
As it entered and exited this warp bubble.
So they're not actually breaking the laws of physics.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe they're not.
Okay.
Maybe they found a way to exploit them in ways that we haven't even begun to comprehend.
So then how would they even power something like that?
Right. That's another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And Puthoff, he was really interested in this idea of zero-point energy.
Okay.
This is the idea that there's this immense amount of untapped energy.
Okay.
Just in the vacuum of space itself.
Really?
Yeah, and if you could somehow tap into that,
you'd have unlimited energy.
You'd have a virtually limitless power source.
Wow.
Which could potentially explain how these UAPs are pulling off these incredible feats.
So we're talking about like harnessing the fabric of the universe.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
It is.
But again, this is what Puthoff was exploring.
Okay.
And Elizondo, he found this to be a very compelling avenue of research.
Okay, so let's go back to the strange biological effects that we were talking about, the burns, the lesions.
The feeling of being scanned.
Yeah, that people have reported during some of these UAP encounters.
Yeah, what if those are side effects of this technology?
Okay, so like if you're messing with space-time.
Yeah, if you're manipulating space-time.
You're gonna create some waves.
You're gonna generate some intense electromagnetic fields.
Okay.
And these fields, they could interact with biological systems in unpredictable ways.
Okay, so like almost like an accidental microwave?
Right, exactly. It's like, you wouldn't want to stick your hand in a microwave oven.
Right.
It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So it's possible that these effects that people are experiencing, they're not intentional.
Okay.
They're just an unavoidable consequence of the technology that's being used.
Oh, okay.
But it's a question that needs to be explored further.
So we're talking about the possibility that this is like, that they're not trying to hurt us.
Well, we don't know.
Okay.
It's possible that it's just a byproduct.
Okay.
But it's something that we need to understand better.
Right.
Yeah, and Elizondo, he didn't just stop with the physics.
Okay.
He also brought in Gary Nolan.
Who is that?
He's a genetics researcher at Stanford.
Okay.
And Nolan, he was looking at the potential connection between UAP encounters and a specific part of the brain.
Okay.
Called the caudate putamen.
The what?
The caudate putamen.
Okay.
It's a mouthful.
It is.
But basically, it's involved in things like spatial awareness, intuition, even psychic abilities.
Oh, wow. So like a sixth sense?
Yeah, something like that.
So are you saying that people who have these encounters are like wired differently?
Well, that's one possibility.
Okay.
Nolan, he found that some individuals who claimed to have had UAP encounters had a larger or more active caudate putamen compared to the general population.
Really?
Yeah. Now, this doesn't mean that they're, developing telekinetic powers or anything.
Okay.
But it does suggest that there might be a neurological component to these encounters.
Okay. That's wild.
That maybe some people are more attuned to whatever these objects are emitting.
So like picking up on something that other people aren't.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
Let's shift gears for a minute and talk about the elephant in the room here.
Oh, okay.
Secrecy.
Yeah, the secrecy is a big one.
Why is there so much secrecy around all this?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that Elizondo, he really struggled with.
Okay.
Because he wasn't just battling skepticism,
Right.
He was facing active resistance from within the government.
Really?
People who didn't want this information to get out.
Why?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Elizondo, he hints at these shadowy groups.
Okay.
Like he mentions the Collins elite.
The who?
The Collins elite.
Okay.
Who were dead set against any kind of UAP investigation.
Really?
Yeah, and even more secretive legacy program.
What's that?
That's even more
mysterious.
Mysterious, yeah.
Okay.
That's rumored to have recovered UAP material.
It's like actual crashed UFOs.
Well, that's the rumor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it sounds like something out of a spy thriller. Right.
It does.
But Elizondo, he's adamant that these groups, They exist.
Okay.
And that they're a significant obstacle
Wow.
to uncovering the truth.
So it's almost like he was fighting a war on two fronts.
Yeah.
One against the unknown and one against his own government.
Yeah, he was caught in the middle.
Wow.
And that internal struggle,
yeah,
that's ultimately what led to his decision to resign from the Pentagon.
Really?
He just felt like he'd hit a wall.
Okay.
That the only way to get the truth out there was to go public.
Wow.
Even if it meant risking his career.
Wow. So he put it all on the line.
He did.
Wow.
He put it all on the line.
And started the truth.
For the truth.
For the truth.
Wow.
And that act of defiance,
yeah.
That's kind of what brought us to where we are today.
It's a big part of it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing how one person can have such a huge impact.
It's true.
So he went from being a skeptic inside the system to basically being a whistleblower on the outside.
Yeah, you could say that.
Wow. That's quite a journey.
It is, yeah.
And it's not over yet.
No, it's far from over.
Wow. It's crazy to think Elizondo's resignation kind of blew the whole thing wide open.
It was really a turning point.
To this whole topic, yeah.
Totally changed the game.
Because it forced their hand?
Exactly. Shattered that code of silence that had been impinged for decades.
Yeah, decades.
And suddenly it's not fringe anymore, it's mainstream.
And he didn't just fade away after he left?
No, not at all.
He teams up with Tom DeLonge.
Right, of all people.
Yeah.
The Blink-182 guy.
Yeah, to form TTSA.
And that was a brilliant move, honestly.
It was so smart.
I mean, you've got rock stars talking UFOs now.
That's how you get people's attention.
Exactly. It's like nobody's heard of AATIP, but everyone knows Blink-182.
Yeah.
And suddenly, boom, those videos drop.
Which, I mean...
The gimbal, the go fast.
It'd been circulating for years.
Oh, yeah, whispers and rumors.
But to actually see them...
It was like proof, you know?
Like, okay, this is real.
The government can't deny this anymore.
So then what happens?
Elizondo takes it to Congress.
Really?
Oh, yeah, straight to the top.
This is serious stuff now.
And he's not just telling stories, he's got data.
Wow.
Analysis, a whole framework for understanding that nobody else has.
So he's like the ultimate insider turned educator.
Exactly, and it works.
It does, yeah.
We get AARO.
The what?
The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office.
Or they're taking it seriously.
They have to.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Huge. From a little program hidden in the Pentagon to a whole government office.
In just a few years.
It's remarkable, really.
But Elizondo's point is, it's not enough.
No, he's very clear about that.
Yeah.
Full disclosure is still a long way off.
So what's holding them back?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are they so afraid of?
It's like, is it the objects themselves or...
Maybe what they represent.
What do you mean?
That we're not the center of the universe.
That's a scary thought for some people.
It's a fundamental shift.
That we're not alone.
Exactly. And maybe that's just too much for some people to handle.
But Elizondo wants us to be prepared.
He wants us to be ready.
To face that reality.
He says we need to stay informed.
Yeah.
Demand answers.
Because it matters. Right.
It matters on a national security level. Absolutely.
Right. We can't be caught off guard.
But it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
This changes everything we thought we knew.
About our place in the universe.
Who we are, what's out there.
Big questions.
And Elizondo, he leaves us with a final thought.
Okay.
If these objects are from somewhere else, why?
Why are they here?
Are they explorers? Scientists? Something we can't even imagine.
It's a lot to think about.
It really is, and we may never have all the answers.
But the search is what matters.
The journey itself.
Well, on that note, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure. Always fascinating to talk about this stuff.
It really is. And to our listeners, keep those questions coming.
And keep looking up.